The question that changed everything. Michael Chen hadn't cried in 17 years. Not when his marriage fell apart. Not when he missed his daughter's graduation because of a board meeting in Tokyo. Not even when he looked in the mirror and barely recognized the hollow-eyed stranger staring back at him. At 52, he had built an empire worth $3 billion, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten how to feel anything at all. The flight from New York to San Francisco was supposed to be just another Tuesday. Michael settled into his first-class seat, pulling out his laptop before the plane even finished boarding. His fingers moved across the keyboard with mechanical precision, reviewing acquisition reports that would determine whether 800 employees kept their jobs or joined the unemployment line. The numbers were clear. The decision was obvious. Shut down the Portland division, absorb the profitable accounts, let the rest go. It was just business. It was always just business. He barely noticed when a little girl appeared beside his seat, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, with dark curls pulled into lopsided pigtails and a yellow dress dotted with daisies. Her mother was struggling with luggage 3 rows back, and the girl had wandered forward, her wide brown eyes fixed on Michael with unsettling intensity. "Why are you so sad?" she asked, her voice clear and curious, cutting through the ambient noise of the cabin like a bell. Michael looked up, startled. His first instinct was to dismiss her, to turn back to his screen and pretend she hadn't spoken. But something in her earnest expression stopped him. He forced a practiced smile, the same one he used in shareholder meetings. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm working." The girl tilted her head, unconvinced. "My mom says people hide sad behind busy. You look like you're hiding a whole bunch of sad." Michael opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He sat there, frozen, as this tiny human with gap-toothed wisdom stood in the aisle of a Boeing 737 and saw straight through walls he'd spent nearly 2 decades building. He let out a sharp laugh, bitter and sudden, expecting that to be the end of it. Children were perceptive, sure, but they moved on quickly. She would return to her seat, and he would return to his spreadsheets, and this uncomfortable moment would dissolve into the forgettable noise of another business trip. But the little girl didn't leave. She clutched her rabbit tighter and waited, as if she had all the time in the world, as if his answer actually mattered. And something inside Michael, something he thought had died long ago, cracked open. The laugh transformed without warning. It caught in his throat, twisted, and suddenly his eyes were burning. A single tear rolled down his cheek, then another, then a flood he couldn't control. 17 years of accumulated grief, regret, and loneliness poured out of him in the middle of seat 2A while strangers pretended not to notice and flight attendants exchanged concerned glances. The girl's mother rushed forward, apologizing profusely, trying to pull her daughter away. But Michael raised a hand, shaking his head, unable to speak through the sobs that racked his chest. The little girl simply reached out and patted his arm with small, gentle fingers. "It's okay," she whispered. "My daddy cries sometimes too. Mom says it means you're remembering how to be brave." The words hit him like a physical blow. Brave. When was the last time anyone had called him brave? When was the last time he'd done anything that required real courage, rather than just calculated risk? As his breathing slowly steadied and the tears finally subsided, Michael looked at this remarkable child who had somehow become his unlikely confessor at 30,000 feet. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Emma," she said brightly. "I'm going to see my grandpa. He's sick, but Mom says we're going to make him smile. Do you have kids?" The question landed like a punch. "I have a daughter," Michael said quietly. "Her name is Sophie. She's 24 now. Do you make her smile?" Michael closed his laptop, the acquisition report suddenly seeming obscene in its cold calculation. "I don't think I do," he admitted. "I don't think I've made anyone smile in a very long time." Emma considered this seriously, hugging her rabbit. "Maybe you forgot how. My teacher says people forget important stuff when they're too busy being important. But it's not too late. You just have to remember." Her mother finally succeeded in coaxing Emma back to their seats in economy, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts and the wet streaks drying on his face. He sat motionless for a long time, staring at the closed laptop, at the reflection of himself in its black screen. The face looking back was older than he remembered, harder, with lines carved by stress and ambition rather than laughter or joy. Michael pulled out his phone. He had Sophie's number, of course, but he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually called her. Their communication had devolved into brief, transactional text messages, birthday checks, holiday gift cards, the efficient exchange of people who had forgotten how to be family. He stared at her contact information for the remaining 4 hours of the flight, his thumb hovering over the call button, paralyzed by the weight of years of absence and the terrifying possibility of rejection. What would he even say? How do you apologize for missing someone's entire life? When the plane finally landed, Michael stood in the aisle, briefcase in hand, watching Emma and her mother deplane. The little girl turned back and waved at him, her smile radiant and full of hope, and he felt something shift fundamentally in his chest. He waved back, and for the first time in 17 years, a genuine smile crossed his face. He didn't go to his scheduled meetings in San Francisco. Instead, Michael Chen, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in America, stood in the airport terminal and called his daughter. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice wary and surprised. "Dad? Is everything okay?" "No," Michael said honestly, and the word felt like liberation. "No, Sophie, everything isn't okay. I haven't been okay for a very long time, and I've let that destroy the most important thing in my life, which is you. And I know I have no right to ask this, but I'm asking anyway. Can we have coffee? Can we talk? I'm in San Francisco, and I know you're in Berkeley, and I know I should have called weeks ago to plan this properly, but I need to see you." There was silence on the other end, so long that Michael thought she might have hung up. Then he heard it, a soft, shaky breath. "There's a coffee shop near campus," Sophie said quietly. "I can be there in 40 minutes. Michael arrived early and waited at a corner table, his hands shaking slightly as he gripped a cup of black coffee he had no intention of drinking. When Sophie walked through the door, he barely recognized her. The little girl with the missing front teeth and the love of fairy tales had become a woman, beautiful and guarded, with her mother's eyes and his own stubborn chin. They sat across from each other, the silence stretching uncomfortably until Michael finally spoke. "I don't have a speech prepared," he admitted. "I spent the whole cab ride trying to think of the perfect thing to say, and I've got nothing. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. I've spent 17 years building a company and losing myself. I've measured my worth in stock prices and market share, and I convinced myself that providing for you financially was the same as being your father. A 7-year-old girl on an airplane asked me why I was sad, and I couldn't answer her because I didn't even realize I'd forgotten how to feel. But when I started crying for the first time since you were in 2nd grade, I knew I had to change. I knew I had to try." Sophie's eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "I used to wait for you," she said, her voice breaking. "Every school play, every science fair, every birthday. I'd save a seat for you and tell myself that this time would be different. And then I stopped waiting. I stopped expecting you to show up because it hurt less than being disappointed." "I know," Michael whispered. "And I'm so sorry." "Why now?" Sophie asked, and there was anger beneath the hurt. "What changed? Why is today different from the 1,000 other days you chose work over me?" Michael thought of Emma, of her stuffed rabbit and her impossible wisdom. "Someone reminded me that I was hiding sad behind busy. She reminded me that it's not too late to remember what matters. And she was right. I don't want to be the man who has everything and nothing anymore. I don't want to be someone who forgot how to make his daughter smile." Sophie was quiet for a long moment, tracing the rim of her coffee cup with one finger. "You hurt me," she said finally. "For years. You can't fix that with one conversation." "I know," Michael said. "But maybe I can start. Maybe if you're willing, we can build something new. Not the relationship we should have had, but something real. Something honest. I can't change the past, Sophie, but I'm here now. I'm really here." A tear slipped down Sophie's cheek, and then another. "I wanted my dad," she said, her voice small and broken. "I wanted you so badly. I'm here." Michael repeated, reaching across the table. Sophie hesitated, then placed her hand in his. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." That coffee shop conversation lasted 6 hours. They talked about Sophie's graduate studies in social work, about her mother's remarriage, about the grandmother Michael had been too busy to visit before she died. They talked about the ways Michael had failed and the ways Sophie had survived despite him. It was painful and necessary, an excavation of years of accumulated wounds, and when they finally parted ways that evening, nothing was fixed, but something had begun. The Portland division didn't close. Michael restructured the company instead, taking a personal financial hit to save those 800 jobs. He cut his own salary by 40% and started actually attending board meetings instead of phoning in from wherever his endless travel had taken him. He stopped measuring success by zeros in bank accounts and started measuring it by the small, incremental ways he was learning to be present. He and Sophie began meeting every Sunday. Sometimes they had coffee, sometimes they took walks, sometimes they just sat in companionable silence, learning how to be comfortable with each other again. It was awkward and imperfect, but it was real. For the first time in 17 years, Michael Chen was building something that couldn't be quantified in a quarterly report. 6 months after that flight, Michael was in his office when his assistant buzzed him. "There's a woman here with a little girl," she said, confused. "They don't have an appointment, but the girl says it's important." Michael came out to the reception area and found Emma, still clutching her one-eared rabbit, standing beside her mother. Emma's face lit up when she saw him. "I told Mommy about the sad man on the airplane," she announced proudly. "She said I helped you." "Did I help you?" Michael knelt down to her level, his eyes bright with tears that no longer frightened him. "Yes, Emma. You helped me more than you could possibly know. You helped me remember how to be brave." Emma beamed and threw her arms around his neck in an enthusiastic hug. Her mother explained that they were in town visiting the grandfather, who was doing much better, and Emma had insisted on trying to find her friend from the airplane. They had tracked him down through the airline and a few persistent phone calls. Michael invited them to lunch, and over sandwiches and lemonade, he told them about Sophie, about the Sundays they now spent together, about the slow, difficult work of rebuilding a relationship from ruins. Emma listened intently, nodding as if this made perfect sense to her 7-year-old wisdom. "See," she said when he finished. "You just had to remember." That evening, Michael sat in his apartment, looking at a photograph Sophie had given him. It was from her college graduation, the one he'd missed for a merger meeting. In the picture, Sophie stood in her cap and gown, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, and there was an empty space beside her where a father should have been. He placed it on his desk, not as punishment, but as a reminder. The next morning, he walked into his office and did something he'd never done in 25 years of leading a company. He cleared his schedule for the following Friday. No meetings, no calls, no emergencies important enough to interrupt. Because Sophie had a presentation for her graduate program, and Michael Chen was going to be there in the front row, arriving early to save her a seat. He thought of Emma's question, the one that had shattered and saved him. "Why are you so sad?" And he realized that he wasn't anymore. Not entirely. He was present. He was trying. He was learning that success measured in human connections was worth infinitely more than any amount measured in dollars. The journey wasn't over. Some wounds take years to heal, and some distances can't be crossed in a single conversation or even 100. But Michael had finally started walking in the right direction, guided by the unlikely wisdom of a 7-year-old girl who saw through his armor and asked the question no one else had dared to ask. Because sometimes it takes the innocent honesty of a child to remind us of the truth we've been hiding from ourselves. Sometimes we need to be broken open before we can begin to heal. And sometimes, 30,000 feet above the ground, a little girl with a one-eared rabbit can show a broken man the way back to his own heart. Michael Chen learned to cry again on that airplane. But more importantly, he learned to feel, to be present, to choose connection over conquest. He learned that being brave isn't about building empires or making ruthless decisions. Being brave is admitting when you're lost, reaching out when you're scared, and showing up even when it would be easier to stay hidden behind the armor of success. And every Sunday morning, when he meets Sophie for coffee, Michael sends a silent thank you to a little girl named Emma who wasn't afraid to ask why he was so sad. Because that question, simple and devastating and impossibly kind, gave him the courage to finally answer honestly. And in that answer, he found his way home.